G'day everyone and welcome to another Battleforged Gaming Ultimate Guide. In this episode, we are going to teach you how to paint an Imperial Fist. As always, this model is built in sub-assemblies, so it's easier to paint. I normally leave this part to the end, but if you find these tutorials helpful, please like them and sub to our channel. It helps us out an absolute ton. Because this model is part of the Warhammer Heroes set, it is a blue plastic to start with. We are going to prime this with Grey Seer. If you don't have Grey Seer, Wraithbone will work just fine. We're going to start by thinning down Imperial Yellow. You want to thin this a little more than you usually would because painting with lighter colours can be more difficult. This is going to take 2 to 3 coats to cover. If you do have an airbrush, it will make this step easier. Thinning down Scrag Brown, we are going to add a recess shade to our yellow power armor. If you make any mistakes with this, you can just tidy up with your Imperial Yellow base coat. With the recess shade dried and your tidy up finished, we are now going to add the first of our 2 edge highlights. For this, we are going to mix 2 parts Imperial Yellow with 1 part Dorn Yellow. After you have finished your primary edge highlight, and remember you can tidy this up with your base coat, we will now move on to the secondary edge highlight that is going to be pure Dorn Yellow. With your secondary edge highlight finished, we will now move on to the dot highlight. For this, we are going to mix 3 parts White Scar to 1 part Dorn Yellow, applying this to all of the edges of the power armor. We will now add some chipping and micro scratching to the armor. For this, we are going to mix 1 part Corvus Black with 1 part Rhinox Hide. The key to this is to add it sparingly and to where the battle damage would most likely occur. So the lower parts of the armor with the legs and the edges of the armor. With heavy metal, less is more. If you go over the top, you will lose the effect of this weathering. We will now highlight our scratches, focusing on the bottom and the right hand side of them. For this, we're going to use our secondary edge highlight of Dorn Yellow. Mixing together Cassandora Yellow and Lahmian Medium, we will now shade the entirety of the yellow power armor. We want this to pull towards the lower sections of the armor, and what you can do is keep some clean water next to you so that you can clean your brush off, and then you can remove some of the wash on the higher points of the armor to create a gradient. Using your same mix of Cassandora Yellow and Lahmian Medium, you can load your brush up, removing some of the paint and focusing on the very lowest sections of the armor to darken them up a little bit more. Taking the Rhinox hide and Corvus Black mixture we used for our chipping, we're going to add around 8 parts water to turn this into a shade and use it to add some streaking to our chipping. Don't go overboard with this step. You don't need to add streaking to every single chip. We are now going to focus our attention on the Aquilla. For this, we are going to mix 1 part Khorne Red with 1 part Screamer Pink. You will need to apply 2 coats for this to cover, and you want to take the utmost care. We've spent a lot of time on our power armor, and it is very difficult to tidy up if we make any mistakes. So take your time. With a mixture of 1 part Khorne Red and 1 part Abaddon Black, we are going to add a recess shade to our Aquilla. You can go back with your base coat to tidy up any mistakes. Applying the first of 2 edge highlights, we're going to mix 2 parts Evil Sunz Scarlet with 1 part Screamer Pink. If you make any mistakes with this, try and tidy up with your base coat. We will now add our secondary edge highlight of straight Wild Rider Red. To finalize the Aquilla, we will add a dot edge highlight of Fire Dragon Bright to each of our feathers. Moving on to the leathers now, we are going to base coat them with a mixture of standard Mechanicus Grey and Corvus Black in a 1-to-1 ratio. This will take 2 coats to cover. Because the under armor is so close to our leather, we are also going to base coat this. For this, we are going to use Abaddon Black. You can also paint the other areas that you want black, such as the gun casing. This will take 2 thin coats to cover. Moving back to our leathers now, we're going to shade this area with Nuln Oil. With your shade dried, we are going to add a primary highlight of standard Mechanicus Grey. This wants to be rather thick because we are going to add a secondary edge highlight to this leather. Mixing together 2 parts Administratum Grey to 1 part Dawnstone, we're going to add a broken edge highlight to our leathers to make it look as if it's distressed. You can also add some micro scratching to some of the flatter areas. With the leathers finished, we will focus on the black areas of the model. For this, we're going to add 3 edge highlights. The first being a mix of Abaddon Black and Eshin Grey in a 1-to-1 mix. This is going to be a rather thick highlight. It is also quite difficult to see, but it does help the next highlight transition better. The second edge highlight for our black areas is Eshin Grey. And the key to this is leaving some of the primary edge highlight visible. We will now move on to the third edge highlight for our black. This is straight Dawnstone. With the underarmor, you don't want to paint the entirety of the raised area, just a section. And then with the gun casing, you can use the edge of your brush to make edge highlighting easier, but you will still need to use the tip in some areas. To finalize our black areas, we're going to take Administratum Grey and paint an imaginary line where the light would hit the underarmor. You can also use this to dot highlight the edges of the gun casing. Because this Imperial Fist is going to be part of the first company, his shoulder trim is going to be painted white. But before we can do that, it needs to be base coated with Grey Seer. This is going to take 2 to 3 coats to cover. You can also pick out any details that you want to be white with this as well. Because our helmet was primed with Grey Seer, we do not need to do this step on the helmet, but we will need to paint the helmet with the next step. Next, using Ulthuan Grey, we are going to base coat the areas that have been primed or based with Grey Seer. You want to thin this down just like we did with our yellow base coat, as it's going to give us a smoother finish. This will take 2 to 3 coats to cover. With your Ulthorn Grey dried, we're going to move on to the Recess Shade. For this, we are going to use Storm Vermin Fur. This is going to be mixed with 1 part water, so it is quite thin. Take your time with this step, paint it as thin as possible, and just use your base coat if you make any mistakes to tidy it up. Before we start highlighting our white, we are going to paint the lenses. This just means if we make any mistakes, we don't need to tidy up any highlights that we'd previously done. We're going to base coat the lenses with Caliban Green. This will take 2 thin coats. Using Warpstone Glow, we are going to add a small tick to the inner corner of the lens, leaving some of our Caliban Green on the outer edge. The key to this is making it large enough so that we can paint some more colors on the inside of it. Next, using Moot Green, we're going to repeat that same process, trying to leave some of our previous Warpstone Glow visible underneath. So just a smaller tick on the inside of your larger tick. Mixing together 1 part Moot Green and 1 part Dorn Yellow, we're going to try and focus on the very inside of the lens. To finalize the lenses, we are going to take some white scar and add a dot to the very outer edge where we've got that Caliban Green. You can also use the white scar to start highlighting all of the white areas. Next, we are going to add our transfers. If you're unsure where your transfers should be placed, refer to your Codex artwork or the Games Workshop website. Once your water slide transfers have slightly cured in place, we're going to take some Microsol and flood the area that the transfer is in. It may shift and you may have to position it back to where you want it, but this will help it contour to curves, especially those annoying shoulder pads. We'll now add some micro scratching and chipping to our white areas as well as over our water slide transfers. For this, we're going back to that original mixture of 1 part Corvus Black to 1 part Rhinox hide that we used on our yellow power armor. Just like we did with our yellow power armor, we are going to highlight our scratches. So for this, you will need Dorn Yellow on the transfers that are on the yellow power armor, and you will need white scar on the white areas, such as the shoulder trim and the helmet. And just like we did on our yellow power armor, we are going to add some streaking using our Corvus Black and Rhinox hide mix thinned down with some water. You can add your selective streaking to that battle damage. Moving on to the purity seals and the wax, we are going to take some Nagaroth Night and base coat the wax of our purity seals. This will take 2 thin coats. Mixing together Genestealer Purple and Nagaroth Night in a 1-to-1 ratio, we're going to layer up the wax of the purity seal, leaving some of the base coat in the recesses. With pure Genestealer Purple, we are going to continue to layer up this wax of the purity seal. Again, you want to leave some of that previous color visible. To finish off this wax, we are going to take Cakophoni Purple and add our final layer. Because our power armor is a warm yellow, we are going to paint our purity seals as a cool color. So for this, we're going to base coat them with Rakarth flesh. Adding Pallid Witch Flesh to your base coat of Rakarth Flesh in a 1-to-1 mix, we're going to paint a series of horizontal lines on our purity seal, focusing on the higher areas. You can also add an edge highlight to your purity seals with this color. Next, using Pallid Witch Flesh, we're going to repeat the same process of painting those horizontal lines, focusing on the even higher parts of the purity seal. Again, you can add an edge highlight to the purity seals with this color. Mixing White Scar into your Pallid Witch Flesh in a 1-to-1 ratio, we're going to repeat the same process, this time focusing on the highest points of the purity seal and also adding that edge highlight. Taking some Agrax Earthshade, we're going to paint this into the recess of the purity seals where they overlap, as well as dragging it towards the top of the purity seal to add a weathered and aged look to it. To add the script to our purity seal, we are going to mix together 1 part Abaddon Black to 1 part Rhinox Hide. You want to thin this down. The key to the mixture is to have it to flow enough off your brush, but also not lose control of that paint. We will now base coat any areas that we are going to paint with Leadbelcher after our varnish with standard Mechanicus Grey. Any areas that we are going to paint with gold or brass/bronze, we will base coat with XV88. We will now varnish the model. I like to use Tamiya TS80 flat clear. The one caveat with this paint is you need to make sure your transfers have been sealed. So if you haven't applied Microsol over even your flat transfers, I suggest you do that, or you can apply Lahmian Medium over the top. Giving your Tamiya TS80 flat clear adequate time to dry, We will now move on to base coating those metallic areas with Leadbelcher. Moving on to the gold and the brass areas, we are going to use Retributor armor to paint our gold, and we are going to use Balthazar Gold to paint our brass areas. Next, we will start shading our metallic areas. We will start with the Leadbelcher. This is going to be shaded with Nuln Oil. We will now shade our gold and brass areas. For this, we're going to use Reikland Flesh Shade for the gold areas, and we will use Agrax Earthshade for the brass areas. We will relayer the gold areas with Retributor armor. We want to leave the previous color in the recesses. Mixing Retributor armor and Stormhost silver in a 1-to-1 mix, we are going to layer up that gold even more, focusing on the higher points of that gold. To finish off the gold, we are going to take straight Stormhost silver and add this to the highest points of that gold. You can also use this to edge highlight all of the Leadbelcher areas too. To finish off the brass areas, we're going to use Canoptek Alloy and add an edge highlight, picking out the highest points of that area. I hope you have found this tutorial helpful. Stay tuned for more ultimate guides in the future, and I'll catch you next time.